we had always known it as the military trail, but as it's told to us, because we have these paint pits scattered all along, the military simply, they were as lazy as the next person, and they simply used the old Indian trails. So this was originally an old Indian trail, and we know this for a couple reasons. First of all, because we have the paint pits alongside of it. So we know that they traveled up. This road pretty much runs straight east and west. Most of their roads did. They were actually the original people here, the American Indians, actually had a better grid system than what we do. And this one here is runs again straight east and west, and then it goes, I mean, it curves a little bit, but I think that's probably more for the fact that the wagon wheels, you know, took the easiest way up and about. But anyway, so this was, you know, right around the time of the Civil War. This trail here would have been followed so that they could have come out here and fought the Indians, because you know, we can't stand it when those other kind of people are different than us. Anyway, but this would have been first an Indian trail, and then after the Indians had been subdued, the army would have come through here, and this would have been one of their trails to go between the two great military roads. Anyway, and there's another way that we know that it is an Indian trail, and I'm going to take you down here. You can kind of see through the trees there's some buildings here, and we're coming to the end of my land and coming to where the state land starts. And just on the other side of the border of the state land, in fact, this trail here becomes the border between my land and the state. And just when that's a pileated woodpecker. If you've ever seen the old cartoon of Woody Woodpecker, Woody Woodpecker was based on the pileated woodpecker. Oh, there he is. Going up, you guys can't see him because I can't get close enough, but he's over here going up a tree. Was based on the pileated woodpecker, and his laugh, was based on that call. All of these stones here would have been markers for the trail. They would have been put here as markers, and I've been told that if you can read the stones, they have a story. This road becomes the border of my land and the state land, and they actually have the road on their land. Their land was one of my great-great-grandmothers, and then during the Great Depression, she lost it to taxes. Couldn't pay her taxes on it, and the state got this about 120 acres over here. And it has belonged to the state ever since. And anyway, so they have this is a CCC camp, and it was originally a CCC camp, and now they use it for other things. But these buildings here were dorms. I don't know if you guys can see them, but these buildings here were dorms that used to house the CCC boys, and this was a government program that when people were starving to death during the Great Depression, they could come here and the men could come here and get a work, and the men did not get the paychecks. The men would they would work, and then their paychecks would go home to their wives, but it was okay because they were also fed and housed here, so they didn't really need money because they had all they needed was food and housing. And so it was the Civilian Conservation Corps, or the CCC. Okay, so here's the corner of the state land here. So this side here is the later part of my farm that I bought later, and this part over here was the part I inherited. And if you look down here, there is a unique, we're looking through a fence. It's like looking at a zoo animal. There's a unique tree that you can see kind of goes up, comes over, and then goes back up. And this is what's called a Ho-Chunk marker tree. And it literally, you can see they've got it all fenced off. There's fence posts around it, and there's a fence around it. And that is to keep people from, it's a very old tree. and it's probably one of the last of the marker trees that predates Civil War. And I shouldn't say one of the last. Yes, one of the last. There are several others in the state, but there aren't very many of them left. And these were trees that, and you can kind of see how the path let's see if you can see it through the fence. No, there's a tree in the way. But the path that we were walking on goes right down the side of that tree, and that tree. The Ho-Chunk would take it, it would grow up. Let's pull this back just a little bit. It would grow up, and then they'd bend it over and cut it underneath and then make it grow up again. And they would literally tie it down a little bit and so that it would grow in this, where it would come up, go over, and then go up again. And that's what that one does. And the Ho-Chunk marker trees were slightly different than, this is Ho-Chunk, then there was Ojibwe as well, and the Ojibways were more of a, they were just bent over, and so you see these trees that they grow up and then they come over and touch the ground over here, and then a bunch of, it looks like it has a bunch of trees, but it's its own branches that turn into trees are growing straight up from it. And they always run the cardinal direction. This one points directly north, so they always point directly north, directly south, directly east, or directly west. And usually they point the opposite of the cardinal direction of whatever they're marking. So like this road runs east and west, so this points north. Or the tree kind of faces the north-south. So anyway, that is another way that we know that this, long before the military came out here and used this trail, the American Indians did, and the military just said, well, hey, we've already got this trail, it's already marked, it's already set up, so why don't we use it? And so it became a military trail after it was a trail that had been used for many, many years. This here is another one of these small plants that seems to have a kind of antifreeze that keeps it from freezing. You'll find it green all winter long, even in the snow. If you look at the base of certain trees, you will find this plant at the base of certain trees, all green. And this is cleavers, also known as bedstraw or lady's bedstraw. And cleavers is a wonderful pot herb. You can eat it when it's small, like these ones here. This one here is really small. You can just eat it right now. You can put it when it gets slightly bigger. You can put it as a pot herb, or you can make it into a tea. There's Ziri. It is a wild medicinal, and there's Buck. And it is a wild medicinal. It has wonderful diuretic, and it is the epitome of plants that are used for spring tonics. Obviously it stays green all winter long, so in late winter, if you were eating a seasonal diet, meaning you didn't go to the store and buy strawberries in January, during the winter you're eating a heavier diet, usually root vegetables, the apples you could store for a little while, meat, some squash that you could store, but heavy calorie, heavy vegetables. And you didn't have a lot of greens that you were eating. Nowadays we do try to put some sprouts in our diet, but back then you didn't. You ate the heavier foods, which in the wintertime actually was good. There you go, Puck, because you needed to have those extra calories. It takes more calories to keep you warm in the winter than it does to keep you cool in the summer, so you needed those extra calories. And but come spring, when you're starting to transition over to the other diet, you've got a lot of this heavy buildup in your body, and cleavers helped act as a diuretic. You can see there's a whole mess of it right through here. It acted as a diuretic and helped you shed that heaviness out of your system. So it usually was mixed later, once they came up with nettles, things like that, but for the epitome of spring tonics, the cleaver was always considered to be, nowadays we can even mix it with our garlic mustard, but cleavers were the epitome of the spring tonic. It's another thing that cleavers are really great for, and that is if you boil and make a very strong tea out of them, you can get rennet, natural plant-based rennet. It coagulates the milk, so you can put in like a 1/4 cup of it and into a gallon of milk, and it'll help and then just let the milk sit for half an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. Come back, put your finger in and see if it breaks. If you got a coagulant milk, if your milk has turned to cheese, it'll have a break to it where basically you can stick your finger in and pull it back up and the milk will literally break apart. And Cleavers is one of the better of the plant-based rennets. You can use nettles, you can use yarrow, things like that for plant-based rennet, but they have a very strong flavor. Cleavers have a very mild flavor, and so especially young like this, so you can use that as your plant-based rennet to coagulate your cheese. But the main thing that's used for is spring tonic or as a diuretic to help if you have urinary tract infections, something on that order. You drink Cleaver tea, and it's really good to kind of just get all that excess out of your body. We have one lone blueberry hanging off this. This is part of the blue cohosh. Actually, this whole area is all blue cohosh. All this, not that one actually, but that one there. They're all blue cohosh plants. And you can usually tell, though we are getting late in the season, that they had these one blueberries. The blueberries are not edible. Don't eat them. What you harvest from blue cohosh is the root. So if you find a plant, if you find the blue cohosh, you can dig down and harvest the root. It is one of the few stimulants we have here in the colder areas. It does kind of act as a stimulant. It's used to the main thing that it's used for is to help. If you're pregnant, you should never take it. But if you've had a labor that's been going on for a very, very, very long time, it does help, and the mother is kind of getting weaker and weaker. The blue cohosh does kind of help the body pass the fetus so that it can come out of you faster, which gives both the mother and the fetus a chance to survive. So anyway, just what's left of the blue cohosh this year. I've already harvested mine. I harvested it as soon as